Hello, everyone. Rob Guest from football.london here, and welcome to the latest episode of Gold and Guest Talk Tottenham, sponsored by NordVPN. Alasdair Gold's joining me as ever. How are you?
I'm good. Hope you are too. Yeah, it's a new era at Tottenham Hotspur, a new head coach in place, and yeah, everything that normally brings. Bit of everything normally, bit of fun, bit of chaos, bit of drama, bit of everything, and hopefully it will be smoother sailing for Thomas Frank. But yeah, some stuff to discuss on that and some other little comments and bits and pieces that have come out in the last couple of days. So yeah, we thought it was time to kind of do a little bit of an extra pod just to chat some of the latest stuff.
Yep. Let's talk about Thomas Frank then, the new Tottenham Hotspur head coach. He signed a 3-year contract. Confirmation arrived on Thursday evening, 8:15 p.m. Bit of a strange time, really, to announce the new head coach. We've had him in the past. I think it was Jose Mourinho announced like 6 a.m. in the morning. Yep. So they do like to do it at certain random times. But main
Do you
news
think they were
is
trying to avoid him being announced Friday the 13th? Just to give him one more thing, a superstitious thing to be worried about.
Does it really matter that? Surely.
You never know with football clubs. You know, they might just see it as like a bit of a kind of putting the mockers on him or something. I don't know.
Anyway, Thomas Frank's the man at the helm. Now, Tottenham also announced some coaching changes as well. A few people following him from Brentford. So, Justin Cochran, he's in as first team assistant coach. There's Chris Haslam, he's head of performance and first team assistant coach. Joe Newton is first team coach analyst, and there's Andreas Georgeson. He's arriving from Manchester United as first team assistant coach. So, first of all, then, Ali, thoughts on the appointment and the changes made by Tottenham?
Well, yeah. Well, we've spoken about the changes. We kind of got to look forward now, haven't we, and ahead. I know there's a little aspect to this where we're going to continually always have to look back a little bit, because naturally you have to, as we've done with every manager, you always kind of look back to the one before and the differences and everything. But in terms of Thomas Frank, you know, we've said it before. I think both of us are kind of fans of his work and intrigued to see how it works for him at Tottenham, a very different kind of club. 3-year deal. I've had some people kind of saying like, oh, that's really short. I don't think it really is. I mean, Postecoglou's, I think, was 3 years, but with an option for another one. So I don't think it's unusual. I thought the statement that came out was quite kind of short, snappy. There you go. He's the new manager. There wasn't kind of much to it. Yeah, it was just like you say, it was kind of thrown out there at night, and I was actually on my way to play footy, and I was like, I knew it. I knew they were going to do it at a time when I can't really react in any way to it. But yeah, I just have this funny feeling it's maybe was something to do with Friday the 13th. I don't know. That's based on no information whatsoever. That's just me wondering whether it's some kind of little silly superstitious thing. But as of right now, we haven't actually had any quotes from him yet or anything. I think there was some talk that potentially he'd been on holiday at some point this week. Whether he's back or not, Thomas Frank, I don't know. But yeah, whether that all needs to be done remotely, because even the image they used wasn't one of him in Spurs kind of stuff or anything. It was one from last season. So yeah, it's an interesting appointment. It hopefully is going to be a good one. He's a good guy, a really good coach. Everyone speaks so warmly of him, not only players but staff and everyone that's ever been connected with him. Really, it's just a case now for him of stepping kind of out the frying pan into the fire, isn't it? Really, because he's come from a very organized, settled club that he played a big part in building the surroundings himself, so that he was working in the optimum environment for him to succeed. And he did. You know, what he did with Brentford was terrific. He's coming to a club that, in the kindest possible sense, is a club that is constantly kind of change or trying to change and be something it wasn't 2 years before, and it's constantly trying to react and be something else. And that's kind of the complete opposite end of the extreme from what he was at Brentford. Like I say, a very settled club. So he's going to have to come in and hopefully bring some of that stability with him. And yeah, just figure out the lay of the land, because as we've both been doing, been reading so much about him and watching every single thing going. And he is a guy that has this he's very kind of set ways about him. He's very adaptable. He does his due diligence about everything. And he said that in an interview, I think it was the podcast one, the High Performance podcast. He said if he was to ever go somewhere, he would do incredibly kind of extreme amounts of due diligence on that club, on the way it's run, on whether, in his own words, there are low-hanging fruit that can he make quite quick improvements to that club and things like that. So he'll have done everything he needs to do on Spurs. He will have seen that many managers have come and failed to kind of carve out a long tenure there. Most managers have been unable to deliver what either the club or the fans wanted. So it's not an easy gig. Otherwise, it would be a club with a cabinet stuffed full of silverware. So yeah, I'm really hopeful for him because, as I said, he's a great guy and a very clever guy, a very clever coach. Yeah, we'll see. What do you make of that coaching staff so far?
Might be a couple short. I suppose we're going to have to see what happens with the likes of Matthew Wells. There's no goalkeeping coach there, so that does maybe hint at Rob Birch stays in position there. But I'm sure we'll see a couple more announcements over that in due course, really. But I think probably a good chunk of that squad, that coaching staff, has made the move within from Brentford. Now, just in regards to, you mentioned the short statement from Spurs, I suppose that's down to the fact that there's no quotes from the new manager, there's no quotes from Daniel Levy, but in comparison, Brentford issued a bit of a lengthy statement, and that had some really good quotes in there from Phil Giles, who is their director of football. He basically said Frank understood what the club were trying to build as soon as he came in, and then his wisdom, coaching ability, and emotional intelligence helped transform the club. And he also mentioned that Frank was instrumental in implementing the culture that has seen Brentford go from strength to strength. So that was a really nice statement from Brentford. But I think in terms of Frank's first words as a Tottenham coach, they will come in due course.
Yeah, and he'll speak well. That is one thing that he and Postecoglou will share. He's a terrific communicator, very different kind of communicator, but we'll get a lot of really interesting stuff out of him. And I'm pretty sure his first words will probably win over a few doubters as well, because he speaks incredibly well. Yeah, in terms of kind of what we had in the statement, I wasn't actually particularly bothered about there not being Levy quotes this time, to be honest. And I know it doesn't matter whether I care whether there's Levy quotes or not, but I just kind of felt first time with the Postecoglou one, it was a bit strange because other than the Nuno appointment, we'd seen them all the time. And obviously this was the guy that finally won a trophy for the club. However, if you're then not going to have them in the announcement of the next manager, then it kind of is fine. That's consistent. That's certainly not going to have any issue with that, because it's then keeping it to what is just a club statement. So yeah, I've seen some people kind of go talking about that, and it's a bit like, well, no, that you can't kind of criticize them for being consistent. That is probably the right thing to do. In terms of the coaching staff, I mean, I'm sure they're all very good, but obviously Justin Cochrane seems to be the star, doesn't he? From everything we hear, and he's very, very highly rated. So much so that I think it created a bit of a dilemma for Brentford, who I think had him being kind of groomed as a successor for Thomas Frank. So for him to not only to have Thomas Frank want to take him to Tottenham, but for him to actually want to go there rather than potentially have a chance of being a manager, says a lot about, I think, how much he believes in Thomas Frank. I think also kind of his familiarity with Tottenham, because if people aren't aware, Justin Cochrane I think it was almost a decade he was at Spurs as a coach in the academy. And yeah, he's very, very, very highly rated. He works within Thomas Tuchel's coaching setup as well with England, which he's going to continue to do part-time. And yeah, there's loads of connections there. He's good friends with Matt Wells. He would have definitely know Rob Birch as well from their time in the academy together as well. And yeah, I am intrigued to see what happens with the rest of that coaching staff. It feels like it's a couple of coaches short, like you said, goalkeeping coach, which kind of you would think lends itself to Rob Birch if he wants to stick around. I do wonder whether we see anyone still go with Ryan Mason to West Brom, or whether that kind of is done now in terms of his coaching staff. I'd heard some suggestions from within the club from various people that perhaps Stuart Lewis, who's done great things with the under-18s, potentially could be someone that gets a step up, maybe, which would be a wonderful experience for him. I think there's a lot of people that kind of feel like it's probably time for him to now start working with older players, because I think he's won 3 trophies in 3 seasons with Spurs or something like that. He's just done, and the amount of young players that have developed from the under-18s and worked all the way up to the first team. And obviously that night against Elfsborg, when we had the 3 young players that scored, I think all 3 of them had worked with Stuart Lewis at some point. I think Dane Scarlett had. I'm sure he would have done. But yeah, regardless, there's some really good in-house options as well. And I know sometimes people are a bit funny about in-house options. It's a little bit like when they'd rather you sign a player than use someone from within a club. And I feel sometimes it's a bit like that with coaches as well. There's some really good, like, talented coaches within the club who are just kind of waiting for that step and that opportunity. And if they're given it, then I think that's a terrific thing, really. But yeah, Cochrane, I think, is going to be really good. Obviously, former Spurs guy coming back. I watched the Sky had this really good day in the life with Thomas Frank, which was just kind of following him on a normal day around Brentford. And funnily enough, one of the characters that kind of came out of it and kind of stuck in my brain was Joe Newton, the first team analyst. He's like, came across really well as this kind of quite shy guy, but who had a brilliant relationship with Thomas Frank, and they trusted each other. He's kind of like his go-between with all of the video analysis work that he does, and whether that's with players or coaches, and he just understands the way Thomas Frank's brain works, and he would have all of these video clips already queued up for him, and he's like, yeah, but have you got the one? He said, yeah, I knew you did that. Yeah, I knew you did that. He kind of knows his style of play and what he looks for in positives and negatives in bits of play. So I think he'll be a big kind of asset as well. Everyone raves about Chris Haslam, the head of athletic performance. And that's an area, he's going to come in and be involved with not only performance, but sports science as well. And that's an area we've spoken about before. We know is going to have major changes at the club. And now you've got this guy that is very kind of highly rated within the industry. I mean, Justin Cochrane, I've got a quote from him here. He calls him, have I got it here, one of the best I've come across in terms of performance. And bearing in mind, Justin Cochrane has worked at Spurs, United, I think he was at as well, England set up, and obviously Brentford as well now. So he's someone that's seen a lot of top people in the performance side of the game. So for him to say that is kind of a big thing. So yeah, interesting people. And Andreas Georgeson as well, who was a set-piece coach, I think, with, Thomas Frank at Brentford previously, then went to Man U, didn't he? And I think, from what I understand from people that kind of covered the team, I think maybe Ruben Amorim didn't really want him in that role. So he moved into a little bit more of a general role, and then left, I think, before the season came to a close. It clearly wasn't working for him under Amorim, but he has that connection with Frank. So yeah, there was various coaches at Brentford that I think we were maybe expecting him to bring or try to bring, and it didn't happen. But this bunch that he's brought seemed to be a very good team of coaches, and we'll see what's added to them.
Yeah, it's only going to be a bit of a short podcast today, so we're going to get straight on to talking about Saley, our sponsors. So Ali, take us away.
I love that. That was the cue for me to stop going on about coaches. We've got lots to talk about. I get it. Yes, Saley, of course. I have come back from my little time away, and I won't. Next time I'll be heading off. We'll be on the pre-season tour where we'll be getting to hopefully have a good sit down and a chat with Thomas Frank, and hopefully speak to some of these coaches as well. And while out there, I will 100% be using Saley, because it will help me save a load of money, or maybe the company. I would have had to expense it back as it's a company thing, but certainly all round it saves money, because if you're not aware of it, NordVPN, which I'm always raving about anyway, Saley is a product that you can use instead of using your roaming costs on your mobile phone network. It's an eSIM, and it is incredibly cheap as well in kind of relation to a lot of mobile network roaming costs out there, and I've used it before. I've used it on holidays. It's very, very good. And yeah, we've got a great offer on it as well. You can either download Saily in your app store, and Saily, in case you're wondering, is spelled SAILY. Use our code GOLDGUEST at the checkout to get an exclusive 15% off your first purchase. So it's even cheaper than it normally would be. Or you can go online straight to saily.com/goldguest, and that automatically uses our kind of referral code for you to get that 15% off. For more information, go to our episode description box.
Right, so following that announcement of Thomas Frank, less than an hour later, all the talk was about a certain message on social media from Cristian Romero. We'd seen over the past week a number of the players, pay tribute to Ange on Instagram, and we were waiting for Cristian Romero's message, and it just seems like he was waiting for the perfect time to do it. And it was less than an hour after Tottenham had confirmed the appointment of Thomas Frank. On his Instagram, Cristian wrote, "Ange, thank you for these 2 incredible seasons. You're a fantastic coach, but above all, a great person who deserves the best. From day one, you paved the way despite the many obstacles that always existed and always will exist. Beyond everything, we won the trophy and went down in the history of this beautiful club, which is the only thing that matters. I wish you the best because you deserve the best, and thank you for everything." Now, when I read that initially, I was watching something else at the time, so I thought I was paying that much attention to it.
Not a movie, I'm presuming.
No, it wasn't a movie. And they're thinking, I thought he'd maybe say a bit more. But then when I read it again, then you're just looking at the key lines. Obviously, the many obstacles that always existed and always will exist. And then about the trophy, winning it, which is the only thing that matters. Yeah, he got his points across perfectly there.
He did. Yeah, like you said, we were waiting for this. We knew it was coming. We didn't know exactly when. We kind of had decided, hadn't we, that it was probably going to have to come after the international break, and he has waited till then. I do think 56 minutes after the Thomas Frank announcement is, do you know what? I'd actually say, while I like how much he adored Postecoglou, I think that was a really good relationship they had. I don't particularly like the timing of it. I don't think that's very respectful to Thomas Frank. I think I don't think that's a great look, to be honest. He's had 6 days up to that point to put a message out. I don't think that's fair on Thomas Frank. And we've said this before. What came before? What happened to Postecoglou? Whether you agree with it, whether you don't agree with it, whether the players are happy with it or not happy with it, none of that has got anything to do with Thomas Frank. It's not his fault. He is coming into a situation where I feel like it's going to be awkward in some respects for him. I think if anyone can get through it, it's him, because of his kind of communication skills and his way he is with people. But yeah, I didn't like that. I didn't like the fact that it came out at that time. It was done for maximum impact, wasn't it? And, I wasn't a huge fan of that. What I did think was quite clever was the wording of it. I did think, well, first off, I would say Christian's English is incredible now. It's just remarkable. I don't know where that's come from. But secondly, it's more whoever's helped him with it, whether it's exactly what I might be doing him a terrible disservice. It might be exactly what he wanted to say. But I think we joked about this, that the lawyers were running their eyes over it in the past just to make sure it's right. But he's crafted something that can be read in any way you want it to be read. So if the club wanted to come at him and say, look, especially after, I think it was December, wasn't it? He gave that interview where he was quite critical of the club and the way decisions are made. And it was very much backing Ange, wasn't it? A kind of this one, I mean, that key line that you said is such a massive one. The many obstacles that always existed and always will exist. That can be taken whatever way you want it. That could be the critics of the club. It could be the media. It could be us. It could be the narrative that surrounds Spurs. It could even be the medical side of things. We know in the past he made quite pointedly reference to thank you to the Argentina medical staff for helping me, even while he wasn't playing for Argentina, because he had that issue. It was the toe, wasn't it, that was causing problems. Or yes, it could also mean the Tottenham hierarchy, especially after that interview he did in December, he could be kind of having a pot shot at them. So yeah, it was very cleverly worded. He can defend it in any way he wants. I don't think he can get in any trouble for it. I thought there was a lot of sweet stuff about Postecoglou. They clearly had this really, really strong relationship. They both had each other's backs all the time. I think we all saw during that moment on the stage where a lot of the celebrations were going on, you just saw the two of them at the back having this really long kind of heartfelt embrace. I think they're just a great mutual respect for each other. And look, Romero's a winner. He's a winner. He's a World Cup winner. He's won 2 Copa Americas. He's won, what's it called? Finalissimo.
Yeah.
Killing the pronunciation. Finalissimo. Oh,
Finalissimo.
That's the one. Finalissimo. Oh, that's dreadful. That was. Yeah, he's won it all. So he's going to respect someone that also wins something everywhere they go, and he's made him a winner again. So yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with the message itself. I just felt the timing of it was a little bit naughty. And look, we know he would like to play in La Liga. I'm sure Atletico are interested. Whether they can get the sum of money together that it would cost to get him is another thing. But he could very well end up playing for Thomas Frank next season. And he could, I'm sure, if he sits down and has a proper chat with Thomas Frank, will probably like Thomas Frank as well. But I just felt this wasn't the greatest of starts for if they do have a relationship going forward.
Yeah, and everything will become clear come July when you return to pre-season training and what comes next. But it's not just Romero who there's big question marks hanging over. Go a bit further upfield. Son Heung-min, you did a story the other day. Son's more open to leaving Tottenham than he ever has been in his 10 years at the club. So, I mean, there's been links with going to Saudi Arabia, to the MLS. Given his contract status, this might be the perfect time for both parties to part way. And what better way for Sonny to leave than having won the Europa League trophy?
Do you feel it's the right time for him to go?
That's up to him, but I suppose I probably would say it is. If you've been at a club for 10 years trying to end this trophy drought and then finally you win it, surely that's the best way of going. Because, I mean, if you look at his performances last season, weren't particularly great. I know he still contributed with 22, 23 goal contributions, but his performances on the whole, I don't think were particularly great, certainly below the levels he's produced previously. And I think there's going to become a point in time where you're going to have to move on from Son anyway. Turns 33 this summer.
Yeah.
And there's a chance next season, if he stays, he might not be a guaranteed starter. So surely this summer, having won something at the club, perfect time to go.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn on it, to be honest, because I do see how, especially if he can get himself fit and fresh and get rid of this foot problem that's been bothering him, I do feel like Thomas Frank's setup, where he likes to get 2 strikers up there quite a lot of the time, could suit him. He could be a support striker off of Solanke or whoever comes in. So I kind of feel like you're going to get Sonny into more goal-scoring areas, which maybe the winger role at Spurs, get down the flank, knock it across, get down the flank, knock it across, maybe didn't suit him to the greatest degree. So there is a part of me that would feel sad in that respect if he were to go. Of course, there's the other side of being sad about it, that he's, quite frankly, is a legend at Tottenham. He set out to achieve something and he achieved it, and he's been there for 10 years. I think it's quite important to look at some of the quotes that came out ahead of the final, where he made it very clear to the Korean media, and I think after that to some English media, that he admitted, I have pretty much stayed at this club because I wanted to win a trophy. So it's quite, you can kind of analyze that as if to say that, had he won a trophy, maybe he would have looked at opportunities that came in, and now he has won that trophy. And that's what I understand, is that this summer is definitely kind of the most open he's been to getting a move if it's one that suits all parties. Obviously, the Saudi Pro League, the clubs there, I think, would be very, very interested in taking him, some of them, because that's a kind of a big thing for them to kind of harness the Asian market that we know how kind of huge he is within. And of course, he is also a terrific player. He is a superstar player. and you'd be taking him to. This is the interesting thing, isn't it? It's the two leagues we've got. One's got Ronaldo, one's got Messi in the MLS. Everyone tells me off, Americans, whenever I say the MLS, because you're saying the Major League Soccer, which isn't technically right. So in MLS, I've got to keep saying that. Yeah, I personally think MLS would suit him. I'd like to see him in that because I think it is a growing league, and you got Messi there, you got Hugo Lloris there as well, and I feel like that's a league that's coming along as well. But I just wonder whether financially the money's there to take him away, because I still think he'd command a hefty fee. An interesting thing with Sonny as well is that I think we've always previously thought, but marketing wise, Spurs would lose so much if they were to lose Sonny. But actually, I'm not sure it's as big as we always thought it was. I think domestically, of course, there's a huge shirt sale thing to it. When they go on tours like they are this summer to Korea, that's a huge thing as well, which obviously, again, quite kind of mercenary style. You'd have to keep him until after the tour, otherwise there would be uproar. And even that would be, it'd be really awkward. But I think actually, in terms of in Asia, from what I hear from quite a few different people that are kind of very knowledgeable about all financial stuff and footballers and things like that, or football finance, is that I think Sonny's actually very intelligent in that I think he's got a lot of his own things locked up himself in terms of marketing, merchandise, stuff like that as well. So I'm not sure Spurs get as much as I kind of always thought they did. I think they still get, don't get me wrong, a hefty amount from having Son there. But I think he's kind of in charge of his own destiny, really, when it comes to a lot of those things, because he's a smart guy. So, yeah, I'm interested to see what offers come in. I think it will be a very sad day if he does leave, because he has been a remarkable player over the years. The amount of goals and assists he's had over the years has been tremendous. I think I did have it here somewhere, but yeah, 173 goals, 101 assists in 454 games. That's no mean feat. We'll see what happens. Personally, I'd like to see him have another season, see how it works under Thomas Frank, but I can also understand the club being wary of letting him go on a free.
It's all going to depend on offers. I think he's not going to have the offers he probably would have if he wanted to go 5 or 6 years ago, when there was maybe talk of Barcelona, Real Madrid after him, because he's turning 33 this summer. He's getting towards the end of his career, and I don't know if MLS, is it a bit too early for him, because the players who head over tend to be mid to late 30s. He might still believe he's got a couple of years left in Europe before going to Saudi Arabia or elsewhere. I mean, look at Kevin De Bruyne. People probably thought he might go to Saudi or MLS. He's joined Napoli now.
Yeah.
So.
Well, maybe Napoli look at Sonny with Conte.
Yeah, and that leads us in quite well to our next point, and it's about Antonio Conte, and there's some quotes that have been published by Sky Italia today, and it's regarding his time at Tottenham. He's spoken quite a bit about Tottenham since he left, fair to say.
Yep.
And
they always do.
And this one is in terms of Tottenham qualifying for the Champions League. It was away at Norwich City back in 22. Last game of the season when they're going head-to-head with Arsenal. 5-0 was it on the day? Sonny winning the Golden Boot. Decky scored the brilliant one as well.
Yes.
Conte's been talking about the celebrations, what were taking place in the dressing room after the game, and basically saying it's something he shouldn't really be celebrating. It's something he's not used to, because when he's been at Juve, Inter Milan, Chelsea, he's there competing for titles, winning titles, and that's when you celebrate, not by getting the top 4, because to him, that is not an achievement. You should be going for the very top and winning those titles.
Yeah, honestly, as soon as I read the words, I heard his accent in my head. It took me back to the press conferences. It took me back to Antonio exploding about certain things. It's look, I get it. Again, we talk about winners with Romero. Conte's a winner. That is, I'm with him on that. I do think it comes back to the whole debate about Tottenham, isn't it? It is. Is top 4 the success, or is winning silverware a success? And he, in that moment, was like, why are you all going mad because you finished 4th? Whereas at Tottenham, that's a big thing. I think I wrote last week, it's only the 7th time they've qualified. I think they've done it 7 times. I think they finished top 4, certainly in the last 24, 25 years. So it is something they don't do a lot of. But, as a very famous Tottenham man once said, the game is about glory, and it's not about finishing 4th. So I get it. I get it. What he's saying, and Danny Blanchflower certainly would, would not be happy with players celebrating finishing 4th either. But it's very Conte way kind of to talk, wasn't it? And he also spoke about leaving the club and the how it kind of all fell apart a bit towards, and especially the stuff that was going on personally with, we wrote about extensive at the time, obviously the 3 people that he'd been close to that died, and his own health problems as well. And he kind of went into that in a little bit more depth. So have a little look on the football.london website for that as well. But yes, it's come at quite a topical time, whether you celebrate top 4 or whether you really go for silverware.
Yeah, so for Thomas Frank, next year, if you guide Tottenham to the top 4, do you celebrate that as success?
There'll be a parade. There'll be a parade around the stadium. No, I'm being facetious. I think for him, that would be a success in terms of what he's come in to do and what the club will expect him to do. I would like to see him go a little bit I'd like him to go far into a cup competition, because obviously at Brentford that was not something they did. They prioritised the league. You're not allowed to prioritise one competition, Thomas. You're going to have to do all 4.
Did have a cup semi-final though, didn't they?
Yeah, I'm talking more FA Cup more than anything.
Against Tottenham, wasn't it?
Carabao Cup. Yeah. I'm glossing over that one. Although, yes, I know they. I am talking more about the FA Cup. Haven't they never got past the 5th round? Admittedly, they're a team that's only been in the Premier League for 3-4 years now. So there are reasons behind it. I'm definitely not using it as any way a criticism, but we saw that statement that came with Postecoglou's departure, and it was that Tottenham need to be competing on all fronts, on multiple fronts. So it's going to be a big adjustment for him. It's not something he's been used to doing. I think top 4 would certainly get him a fair bit of kind of belief, I think, among the fans, and I think the club would be very happy with that as well. But yes, I think it would have to be then the start of something even bigger, because essentially, let's be honest, we've kind of hit a bit of a reset again. It's not quite a full reset, a full rebuild, but it is very much do your own thing now, Thomas, and we'll give you the support in the eyes of the club, I think.
Yep, that's it for today's latest episode of Golden Guest Tottenham. We'll be back next week to discuss what's happening in N17, and hopefully Thomas Frank will have spoken for the first time as Tottenham head coach. So in the meantime, just keep with us at football.london for all your latest Tottenham news. You can either download Saley in your app store and use our code GOLDGUEST at the checkout to get an exclusive 15% off your first purchase, or online you can go straight to saley.com/goldguest. For more information, please go to our episode description box.